Okay, Rabosai, so we're here on Daf Lamed Tes Amud Aleph, and we're up to the Mishnah. And we're hoping and praying that this will be a little easier than the previous sugi, which was a doozy with Beis Hillel, Beit Shammai, and the Reish and the Seifa, and Ula, and Abaye, and it's all right. Mitzvah begadol liyam. So we have a number of brothers, and one brother died, unfortunately, leaving a wife without children, and now there's Yibum. Which of the brothers should be miyam? So the Mishnah's language is mitzvah begadol. Gadol doesn't have to mean necessarily that he's the oldest brother, because it could be the oldest brother was the one who died. But amongst the brothers that survived, which one is the oldest? And he has what's called mitzvah liyam. Now we'll see in a minute that that's derived from a pasuk in the parsha of Yibum. But before we get to that, let's just ask the following question. What does that mean, mitzvah begadol? Does that mean prerogative? He has the prerogative to insist that he'll be the miyamin? Or does it go even beyond that? It's not just a prerogative. We're not just giving him rights, but it's a chiyuv. It's an absolute obligation. According to the first approach, if it's just a prerogative, then we're not really obligating him. We're giving him a prize, so to speak, and we're granting him an award. You know, he's got a little petek over there. He says, you know, I have rights. And if any of the other brothers want to push him out and they want to be miyabim before his, then they're undermining his rights. But it could be that mitzvah begadol is a din in mitzvah's yibum. It's not just in a relationship between him and the brothers. You know, yet like there's a whole Torah that you could write, a whole Shulchan Aruch about two people, both of whom could fulfill one single mitzvah. Who goes first? Who gets priority? Who has the rights to go? So, for example, you might say that in certain cases, a Talmid Chacham gets rights over an Amoritz, a Kohen gets rights over a Levi or a Yisrael, right? We have different halachas of kedima when there's only one mitzvah and there are many people vying for that mitzvah. So who gets first dibs? And this might be another example, an application of those general halachas. And age, as we're going to derive from a pasuk, it gives you kedima. Or we say no, it's way, way beyond the din of kedima. We're talking about the mitzvah of yibum. And that mitzvah of yibum is incumbent on the God. Let's see the pasuk. Maybe the pasuk will give us a clue. It says, "V'hoya habachar asher teled yakum al shem achiv hameis." The Torah adds the word bachar. V'hoya bachar. Now, we thought that the word bachar here is a reference to the child that's born after the yibum. But the Gemara understands that the word bachar here is added to tell you before yibum who does yibum. And the answer is habachar. He's the one who's obligated in yibum. Now again, bachar usually means firstborn. In this context, it doesn't necessarily mean firstborn. It might mean firstborn, but it means he's the bachar vis-a-vis the other brothers, meaning he is the gadol sheba'ach. Now, if this pasuk singles out bachar, which is gadol sheba'achim, for the mitzvah of yibum, it sounds like we're talking about a chova. Now, you might suggest that if it's a chova, maybe the entire mitzvah of yibum is chal on him, and there is no mitzvah of yibum on the other brothers, and that's going to have tremendous repercussions, because that means that if for whatever reason he takes a long boat to, I don't want to say China, but anyway, he goes out there and he's not available. Is there yibum as far as the other brothers is concerned? I could have a havamina that if the Torah says that the bachar is miyabim, then vis-a-vis the other brothers, she's an eishasah. And there's no possibility of yibum. So if he's out of the picture, let's say he refuses to do yibum. That's a good case. I don't have to say he took a long journey. I'm not interested in Yibum. Well, obviously, chalitza is an option, but right now, in that suspended state, is there a mitzvah now on the achim? That's what the Mishnah is going to address in just a minute. But just to understand what the Mishnah would possibly be vacillating about a hapin and a maskana, it could be possible that if the Bechor is out of the picture, then the other brothers now take over the Bechorah, as far as Yibum is concerned. He removed himself, and therefore somebody else could step into his shoes and become the Bechor. Or do we say no? It's Bechor or bust. Whoever is the Bechor, he's identified as the single sole brother that has the mitzvah of Yibum. Yeah. But we can't go too far with that, because if that be the case, then what is she going to do in the event that he goes on a long trip? Can she get chalitza from the other brothers? Obviously, the answer is yes, but how is that going to jive with the assumption that they are not the Bechor and the Torah imposed the mitzvah on the Bechor? But maybe the Torah imposed the mitzvah on the Bechor as far as Yibum, but as far as chalitza is concerned, the Torah never specified the Bechor. In any event, the Mishnah says lo rata. Okay, the Bechor. Is there a word in English, D-E-M-U-R? To demur? Is there such a word? My wife always accuses me of making up new words. So if there is such a word, and David says there is, so that's an Australian, that they know English better than we do. So if there is such a word, he demurs. Is then Mahalchin al Kolach? No, Bezdin will now sort of call in the other Achim one by one. And again, I don't know what the Kedima is once the Bechor is out of the picture, I don't know. But Bezdin is going to ask the Achim which one would be willing to be Miyabim. And what happens if they all turn their back? Lo Ratzin. There's not one brother who is willing and ready to be Miyabim. So now we have to ask the following question. What is the status of the Bechor? Is it limited to the mitzvah of Yibum? Or does it apply even to Chalitza? You remember we said that Chalitza is also a mitzvah. In the event that there's no Yibum, there's a mitzvah of Chalitza. So one side is to say that, look, the Bechor has a mitzvah of Yibum. If he refuses to be Mekayim the mitzvah of Yibum, he's out of the picture. He's no longer a Yachzan here. He doesn't have a special status as a Bechor. And the ball is thrown back into the court of the other Ach. They will decide who will do Yibum. And if no one wants to do Yibum, let them choose one of the brothers to come forward and do Chalitza. Whoever volunteers. And if no one volunteers, basically is going to force one of them to give Chalitza. That I can promise. Or do we say no? His status as a Bechor is not only limited to the mitzvah of Yibum per se, but it encompasses the entire enterprise of Yibum / Chalitza. And if you look at the Mishnah says, Lo Ratzu, none of the brothers are willing to be B'yamin, is Chozrin Eitzel HaGadol. We go back to the Bechor. So the Bechor has two different, shall I say, the special status of Bechor has two different applications. It's a Yibum Halacha. So we go through now all the brothers as far as Yibum is concerned. He's first on the list. He gets the option of doing Yibum. If he drops out, then we ask the other brothers, one after the other, who is willing to do Yibum. That's track number one. If that track leads us to a brick wall, and there's not one single brother available and eager to do Yibum, then we're in the Chalitza mode. And once again, we go back to square one to the Bechor. Omrim lo. You got two choices. Alecha mitzvah. And now the word mitzvah takes on a generic, all-inclusive meaning and significance as far as Yibum is concerned. Hain legabe Yibum and hain legabe Chalitza. Alecha mitzvah. Now it's interesting. On the first round, if he drops out, the other brothers step up to the plate, which means that on the first round, his schus is only with regard to Yibum. If he, how do you say in English, mavater, if he forfeits, let's use that word, his mitzvah of Yibum, then the mitzvah of Yibum now is thrown into the court of the other brothers. But once we have exhausted the possibility of finding a single brother who would volunteer to do Yibum, none of them are willing to do Yibum. There's a unanimous thumbs down against Yibum. Now we ask the Bechar, you have a mitzvah. Yibum is one option, the best option, the preferable option. But if you don't accept that as an option, there's no other brother who's willing in your family amongst your brothers to do Yibum, and now you're still insisting, despite that fact you're not willing to do Yibum, then you are obligated in the mitzvah of Chalitza. Now what happens if he refuses even Chalitza? So one side would be to say, let's beat him black and blue until he agrees to do Chalitza. He points to another brother. Let's say there are only two other brothers alive. There were three brothers to begin with. So now Shimon, the older brother, turns to Levi and says, let Levi be the Chalitz. The problem is that Levi is a katan. A katan can't do Chalitza. He may be a newborn babe. We'll have to wait 13 years until he can do Chalitza. Tola, big katan, Achi Yagdil. So what does that mean, Achi Yagdil? Does that mean Achi Yagdil means he's off the hook, this Bechar, as far as Chalitza is concerned? I would have said, let's beat him until he's blue in the face and make sure that he does Chalitza. We're going to wait 13 years now till this katan is capable of Chalitza? What does it mean, Achi Yagdil? Is this not cruelty? But apparently the answer is that there's a mitzvah of Yibum. And that mitzvah of Yibum takes precedence over Chalitza. And until we've exhausted every possibility of Yibum, we will not have Chalitza. It's almost as if, again, I don't take me seriously here, but it's almost as if we're hearing the voice of the deceased, of Reuven who died, coming out of the Beis HaKaparos, like a baskol, and he's demanding Yibum. L'hakin zer al shem achi. And this is my wife. She has to give birth to a child that's nikra al shmi. I couldn't do it in my lifetime. I died, but I still have rights, so to speak, as the ghost to demand that she be Makayim Shem Achid, with my name, through Yibum. And we haven't exhausted all the possibilities. We have a Ben Katan. I have a kid brother. He's very young. He's just born right before I died. His birthday is the same as my yahrzeit because he was born in the morning and I was born in the afternoon or in the evening. Let's wait for him to do Yibum. Really plum. My heart goes out for the Yevamot. Once again, I don't understand why the Bechar is off the hook. Just because he's pointing to the katan. But the answer is, it's not that he's pointing to the katan. I don't believe for one moment that it's his decision to point to the katan. The halacha says we have to point to the katan. If this Bechar is exercising his veto power to veto Yibum, then we go back to the mitzvah of Yibum. The only thing that bothers me here, just in terms of pshat in the Mishnah, is the word tala. There are other brothers. And what's tala? Tala means that he, I don't know if it's only the Bechar or maybe all the brothers except for the Katan, Tala. Tala means be achiv katan, be katan. Ad sheyagdu. So I'm going to suggest now, and you'll check me out if you have anything, maybe David, you can check it out in the notes there, that the word Tala is not referring to the Bechar necessarily, but rather to any of the other brothers who are Gedolim. They're not as old as the Bechar, they're younger, but they're past the age of Bar Mitzvah. And now that the Bechar has refused, we go to these other brothers and we ask them to give chalitza. Any one of them will say, there's a katan here. Let's wait and see if the katan will be willing to be miyabed. I mean, once we give chalitza, we've closed the door forever on Yibum. And the Torah wants the mitzvah of Yibum. And the Torah doesn't want to leave any leaf unturned. Maybe there's a possibility of Yibum. Oh, begadol. Now, what does that mean, begadol? Begadol was the one who refused to do Yibum, and probably chalitza as well. So what's the O begadol? He writes here, O shehu gadol ha'achim hanitzal fanenu v'yesh lo ach gadol yoser she'eno kan. Oh, he's creating a whole complicated scenario. The one who's here, we say in Yiddish, in art, right? He is the oldest of the brothers here. But Yesho Ach Gadol Yoser She'eno Kan. There's an older brother who's not here. So when we go to these brothers, well, we'll say there's there are two brothers, right? So we go to Levi because Shimon is not around. Levi says, let's wait till Shimon shows up. We'll send an entourage. We'll send a wagon, horse and buggy to bring Shimon here. And that's called Tola Begadol. Ad sheyavo mimedina sayam. The Gadol, the oldest brother, is out there in somewhere in Medina Sayyam. So again, there seem to be two scenarios in which we want to wait before we close the door on Yibum, because there is still a glimmer of hope that there will be Yibum. One is if you have a Ben Katan, an Ach Katan, and the other is if you have an Ach Gadol who's b'Medina Sayyam. I'm just not sure. Why is this totally in Ba'ach Gadol? I mean, why didn't the Mishnah just say Ach? I don't care if he's Gadol or he's not Gadol, but if he's in Medina Sayyam, let's wait for him. This I don't understand. Oh, now there's a third possibility as to why we're going to delay Chalitza. Peresh Oshota. Wow, this is amazing. We're going to wait and postpone chalitza, not only because of a katan who will become a gadol soon with the hemshechah, but even for a cherish and a shota who are incapable of chalitza or yibum. And he writes here, lahamtin ad sheyavri. I don't know what kind of a cherish and shota we're talking about, but I guess the shota is undergoing some serious therapy, psychological therapy. In the case of a cherish, I'm not sure exactly, but I guess there's something called temporary deafness. I didn't hear you. What did you say? So where do we put the comma in this Mishnah, right? The Mishnah says, Omer lo alecha mitzvah o chalos o yaveh. And I'm thinking now, maybe we should put the period right here. And we're going to read the whole continuation of the Mishnah and culminate with the words Ein Shomin Lo. Do you follow me? So the Ein Shomin Lo that we're about to read goes back all the way to the beginning where it says Tola. Tola means that we come back to the Bechor, as we said, we swing around back to him. We impress upon him that he has two options. He's either got Yibum or Chalitza, and he comes with his argument. He says, wait a minute, what are you telling me? I have to do Chalitza. I have a younger brother. Let's wait till he's Gadol. Or I have a brother that's out in Medina Sayyam. Let's wait until he returns. Maybe he'll be Miyaveh. I have a brother who's a Cherish or a Shota. Maybe he'll get healthy again and he'll be Miyaveh. Ain't Shomer Lo. The Torah gave him an obligation as a Bechor, which is in first preference Yibum, but as a fallback obligation of Chalitza, but it's one of the two. It's one mitzvah of Yibum and Chalitza. Ela Omrim Lo, we're going to say to him, you're the Gadol HaAchim, you're right here in front of us. Alecha mitzvah. You have the mitzvah. You cannot pass the buck. O chalotz, o yavin. I don't know why it says it in that order. He has the thing about Bismanenu that we prefer chalitza or yibum, fine. But in this new reading of the Mishnah's Tola, in quotation marks, is all to explain a Havamina. There was a Havamina that we would delay Chalitza for the sake of A, Katan, B, Medina Sayyam, C, Cherish Oshot. And that was the Havamina. But Lamaskana, we're going to reject it. But my question is whether or not Ein Shomer Lo goes back on all these cases. Does anybody have a note on that? Ein Shomer Lo. Is there any note on the words Ein Shomer Lo? Here, there's no note, unfortunately. Can I borrow your Gemara, or you're convinced that there's no note here? Let me just take a quick piece, because I don't know, the Masifta, again, maybe it's so posh that they didn't even have to note it. 36. Yeah, he's definitely going back on the case of Medina Sayyam, that's for sure. So we might as well go back to the case of the Cotton as well. He says, although the primary mitzvah rests with the eldest brother who is abroad, he's from Medina Sayyam, nonetheless, we did not delay the mitzvah, even though the primary mitzvah is on the eldest brother. Rather, we approach the eldest of the remaining brothers who are available here to perform the mitzvah. Oh, likewise, in the case of the deranged or deaf-mute brother, we do not delay the mitzvah until he can recover, nor in the case of a minor brother do we delay until he comes of age. Rather, we proceed immediately with the eldest available brother. We give him two choices, my friend, and I just wish he would add, we'll beat him blue in the, black and blue if he refuses. We do not accede, that's a good word, we do not accede to the brother's request that the deaf-mute or deranged elder brother perform Yibum. Oh, okay, so this is more complicated. He has another element. With the Evid, what happens if they did do Yibum or Chalitza? Okay, that's a sugya unto its.
Actually, the Shaitan wouldn't have not
right, he's not chayv mitzvah, but I think he has a discussion in what happens to the Evid if he did Yibum, whether or not. I don't know. I don't want to touch that because that's way futuristic. He says here the Mishnah follows the view of Rabbi Meir, Adaf Samach Aleph, that's way futuristic, who does not allow a minor to perform Yibum. Hence, deferring to a minor brother, right, would entail waiting until he becomes of age. So again, I think this is a key line here in the footnote. I didn't see it so clearly in the Masechet. He says, the brothers are deferring to him, meaning to the eldest brother who's in Medina Sayyam, or maybe he's deaf, or whatever it is, asking that we wait until the eldest brother recovers, in the case of a deaf mute, or returns from Medina Sayyam, and then ask him to perform Yibum. Again, it sounds like the voice of the deceased, speaking through the grono of the brothers who are available. Let's wait, and who knows what will happen? Somebody come back from the Siyam will be miyame. The cotton will become a gadol. The shoter will become the shtapeach. He'll be well. And the chiddush of the Mishnah is that we do not delay the mitzvah. We approach the eldest of the remaining brothers who are available to perform the mitzvah. And we say, oh, halotz, oh, yab. So I thank you for that. I'm always surprised when
So the Mishnah seems to be implying that Yibum does not require da'at.
How do you see that? I mean, that is true what you're saying, but I didn't notice that in the Mishnah.
Well, from the line that you just read, because it doesn't.
Oh, you mean that b'diavad maybe the yibum of a deaf person would be
right? It doesn't chayrish or katan.
Right, but you have to balance. You have to square that off with what the Mishnah says about a katan, because the Mishnah says about a katan that we have to wait until he becomes a gadol.
Right.
Which sounds like we need das, and he's a la bar das. So I don't know. I don't know. Shota maybe is a bar das, but I'm just saying you're probably 1,000% correct that Yibum does not require das. But in the context of this Mishnah, I could argue pukfakert, that Yibum requires das. And that's why the logic was, let's wait for the cut to become a gadol, and then he could be miyabed. Unless, again, maybe the Mishnah needs something totally different, that, maybe the Yavam as a cut is not capable of doing the Maisa Yibum or something along that line. But one could extensively argue that the reason why there was a Havamina, let's wait for the cut to be a gadol, and that was the claim of the brothers. We have a younger brother who's a cut, let's wait till he matures, is because we need das for Yibum. That's not correct. Maybe he's less than 9 years old. He's not capable of bia at all because he's a la bartes, ain't a royal bia. I don't know. Again, there are a lot of factors here in this Mishnah that are still very much up in the air. But there is at least a theoretical possibility that Yibum requires a bar das. Now you're saying, Ruvain, that Yibum doesn't require das. It could be, you're right. Yibum doesn't require das, but it requires a bar das, if you follow me. Like, a royal bila, ain bila, makevis both. He's royal das, he doesn't have to have das. But he's got to be royal das. He's got to be a bar das. And therefore we would wait for the cut. But the Chiddush of our Mishnah, bottom line, is that we don't wait. We don't delay, even in the various array of possibilities that maybe Yibum would become a reality down the line. Either A, when he grows up, B, when he comes back from Medina Sayyam, C, if he's Nisrape from his Choli, from Shota Cheresh, we're not going to wait. Now, I'm just wondering, I'm thinking out loud, how far do we go with this mission? Let's say today we live in a world of communication, which didn't exist at the time of Chazal, right? So there's somebody, let's say, I'll dramatize it. The oldest of the brothers is on a cruise out in Medina Sayyam, and I can send him a WhatsApp message, right? And he WhatsApps me back that according to schedule, I should be landing in an hour. And I'm very eager to be Mekayim in this of you. I mean, if I'm correct, then in such a case, Beis Din will actually wait until he gets off the ship. They will not force the other brothers, oh chalotz, oh miyameh. Because the brothers are not interested in Yibum. None of them are volunteering for Yibum, but we have an older brother, again, just to dramatize, who's on a boat. He's about to step off. He's on an El Al plane that's scheduled to touch ground in an hour. And he already sent us a message. Wait for me. I'm coming for Yibum. What would we do in that case? And Levi Omer, in that case, we would wait for him to get off the plane. Again, you may disagree with me, but I think that's intuitive. But then, how do you draw the line? When do we say, yeah, let's wait? And when do you say no? Omrim lo, o chalotz, o yam. Okay, Rabbosai, we'll stop here because we've opened up a lot of questions here on the Mishnah, and we'll hopefully get an insight from the Gemara. So what's tomorrow? Tomorrow is Yom Kamishi, correct? It's hard to believe, but that's the way life works. They don't give us a choice. The only one who had a choice was Yoshua when he said, Shemesh begimot dom. Imagine a child who was about to become a bar mitzvah, and his bar mitzvah was delayed by a couple of hours until they beat the, where was it, Yericho? Which battle was it? Whatever the battle was. Shemesh begimot dom. We're all a little bit older than we want to admit because Shemesh begimot. All right, anyway, wishing everyone a great day. Call to thank you.